doesn't mean that their relationship with their husband or wife is different. But that was a special moment. You normally don't, the first person you kiss normally isn't the person you marry. However, if that ends up being great. So that's a memory, and it's scorched in your mind. Certain memories you don't get rid of. So that was like first base, if you will, back in the day, or step one, or however you want to look at it. And it progressed from there. Eventually, I got myself into a situation that I didn't have an exit strategy for, if you will, a way of knowing how to get myself out of a situation, and I got lost. And I remember at the time, and it's one of those things that you people, it's kind of side, you hear people talk about, I heard God speak to me, and you kind of think that's weird, right? God's never spoken to me, how does that work? I personally had it happen twice, and both of them were really kind of profound. The first time, he wasn't speaking to me. He was screaming for me. And he was reaching for me. I felt it. Because in that moment, I was in a position where I had a choice to make. It was time to either go down path A or down path B. Either I was going to retreat from this situation, or I was going to enjoy this situation. And as I hear him screaming, the urge inside of me led me down the path to enjoy the situation. Now, like I said, I thought many times I would be in this situation. I thought I would be, at this stage, having children that are older than you guys. Having somebody who's in college at this point. Thankfully, that never happened. Because the choices that were made after that just escalated and kept going and going and going. And you always want more. And eventually the relationship did fall apart just because that's all it was based on. It wasn't a relationship for a guy to meet a girl and really get to know her, or a girl to really get to know the guy. That was gone. It was gone a long time ago before we got to the point where where it dissolved. But then after that, that's what my relationship was based on. Find a girl, like the girl, into me, all right? Because that's what I figured out relationships were. It was all about the sex. And I know that there's a lot of pressure that night for me to go that direction inside of me. Stuff that's just going on just because those chemicals are flowing. And you've got to have some sort of profound base. You've got to make a decision before you ever get into that position that you're going to lead and you're going to know how you're going to do it. Now, I know Lynn wanted to share with us as well, because she has been in a position that she didn't want to be in, and she wanted to share her story.
I just like to talk.
That's my job.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to share a little bit because, I feel like, no offense, Brad, but it's been a little bit less time since I was in your shoes, since I was in high school. And so I just wanted to share that, when I was in high school and in middle school growing up, I made a decision and I thought, I understand that the Bible shows me, God says, save sex for marriage, that's not something to be doing in dating. And I heard that message and I thought, I can do that, I agree to that. And I didn't think a ton about it. I just thought, I realize that's not what God has for me, so I won't do that. But unfortunately, by the time I started dating when I was in high school, maybe you've seen it happen this way in your own life, but you can become a little bit desensitized sometimes when you're around something enough. When you see something happen enough, you start to think, well, maybe it's not that bad, and you can start to kind of justify things in your mind. And so, like Brad said, sometimes you find yourself doing things that you thought you wouldn't, sort of thing. For me, I did have a decision that I was not going to have sex until I was married. And ultimately, I ended up changing my mind. I didn't stick to it. I didn't follow what I had decided because I wasn't committed enough. I didn't really understand how great God's plan was, and I didn't understand the value of why it is that God says that he has that and made that for marriage. And I think that it's hard because I was a church kid. I was here in youth group, and my leaders, they all loved me. No one would have thought that that's what I was doing, but I was. I wasn't following I was following here in one way, but then I was doing my own thing somewhere else. And so I bring it up, and I want to share that just because nobody's making assumptions about where you're at with this, about what you think, what's important to you, if you're on board with this, or if you're questioning it. Those are all things that we want to be able to talk about. And I think that the biggest thing for me is just that I think that sometimes I hear messages and I think a preacher can make it sound, or a Christian can make it sound like, man, if you've done this, like, that stinks, like, you just missed out, like, that'll stink for the rest of your life, that, like, you already did that with someone. And I just want to share that this is something that did have a consequence, like, that I chose to have sex before I was married, had consequences, that's followed me, I've dealt with that, I've been dealing with that. But it's not something that holds me back, it's not something that hurts me anymore. You know, it's like Brad was saying, I had such an awareness, and maybe you have this when you sin as well, but I had a real awareness. This is sin. Like, I knew this is not what God has for me. And it was because I had that knowledge, because I knew that, and I chose to do it anyway, like, that's what I've had to deal with, is recognizing with God, like, I understand that you have a great plan for me, and I have continually stepped outside of it. But I want to make sure that though that is a real and true message, and that was my experience, and it stinks that someday when I get married, like, that won't be the only person I've ever done that with. At the same time, there is complete freedom from it if you have. I am not hurting anymore that I did that. I am free from it, and because of that, like, I just want to be up here to say, whether you're doing that right now, or you have, or you're not really sure what you think about it, I just want to, like, urge you to, like, learn from my mistake, learn from Brad's. Like, there are so many people I really do wish that I would have had conviction when I decided long a time ago, I'm not going to do that. And so tonight, when we read the scriptures, when we talk about it, no matter where you're coming from, it's not too late to see, you know, wow, like, what God has for me, actually, maybe there's a reason that he says this. It's not just a command because he wants to control us. It's something that he created us for, and now I can see that. So I don't know if that relates to anybody out there right now with your situation, but I just want to encourage you that no matter where you're at with your experience, God wants to use that. You know, I messed up, but he's used that mistake in so many ways to connect with other people who are either in the decision process or who are struggling with it, or who need to know that there is freedom. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ed. So, you know, I know this because it's how I was raised, that you don't have sex outside of marriage. And then so the question is, where does this come from? What part of the Bible does this come from? It's Old Testament, it's New Testament, it's kind of spread out. The first part of it comes from Genesis, where God created man, and then he created woman, because it wasn't good for man to be alone. And he said they would join to become one flesh, and they were going to populate the world, which is God's plan in a covenant. Like, he'd set up a covenant with them, he expected them to honor each other. Then you get into the New Testament, and I have not run across specifically where it says Jesus said don't do this, or Jesus said don't do that. But Paul sees it going on. As I'm reading this, he's hitting like many different areas of the world, and he's writing the same message to them. And so apparently it was kind of a problem, and he's going, this is not good, because look at what's happening with you guys. So the first one comes from Ephesians chapter 5, verse 3, and it says, let there be no sexual immoral, easy for me to say, I can say sex 100 times easier than that. Let there be no sexual immorality, impurity, or greed among you. Such sins have no place among God's people. And then coupled along with that is, did I mismatch that? You know what the problem is with marking a Bible? Mismarking it. It's really bad. This was all set up. Anybody else want to stall for me?
Ephesians 5:3.
You already got that one. That's the problem. This is the second one was set up. Whoops. Thank God I'm not recording this. Right? 1 Corinthians 6:18 says, run from sexual sin. And this is kind of where I kind of would have liked to have had this part, kind of the running part. There's no other sin so clearly affects the body as this does, for sexual immorality is a sin against your own body. You're not just lying to somebody or being cruel to somebody. You've done something that is with you all the time because you've done it to yourself. And that really is kind of what is hard for me, is that kind of is always there, no matter where I'll be in my life. And that is something that my wife has taken and forgiven me for and accepted me for and loves me nonetheless. So I guess the question is, what do we do? What's the point of our relationships? What is the point of your relationship? Have you made that choice? I think before you ever get to thinking about sex, you have to understand what it is you want out of a relationship. If you want sex, then it's easy. Dinner, dining, and maybe you get lucky, right? I hope that's not the case. Because that's a hard way to live. It's a place that puts you in a situation that when you get to be my age, when you get to be double my age, when you get to be a little bit more than that, because I don't think I'll get to triple, but that you look back and you just wish you made better choices. You know, I mean, when you spend money on certain things and you buy something and later on you go, you know, man, I wish I had that money back because then I could buy this because this is really what I want. Well, when you're when you choose to date somebody, guy, girl, and you spend time with them, and either you know their history or you know what you're going after and what you think could happen, and you spend that, and later on you find somebody that you actually really kind of like, that likes what you like, that likes to spend time with you doing the things that you like to do, which is really cool. Be it camping, be it shopping, be it driving cars, be it raising horses, you name it. When you find that person that likes to be with you when you do what you like to do and they enjoy it with you, then you've got something to transition into the next phase, the phase where you've decided to marry them and sex produces children. It doesn't just produce pleasure. God's made it for that, for marriage, but he hasn't just made it for just pleasure. It's both. And so I hope that when you guys leave here tonight, after your small groups, you've either made a decision on what you're going to do. I implore you just to make a decision, because without it, you're lost. And you're going to get yourself in a situation where whatever way the wind blows at that moment, that's also a hard way to live. So as we break into our small groups tonight, if you guys have questions of your small group leaders, or you're struggling with something, or you just feel like you've gotten into a place you don't know how to get back out of, or you feel like it's headed a direction that you're like, I don't know if I want to go that way. What do I need to do? Ask your leaders, ask your friends. Have a friend ask a leader for you anonymously if it's not something that you feel like stepping forward for. Because I'm telling you right now, this is a profound decision in your life, if it's not already been made. If it has been made, you have other decisions that you need to make that can be just as profound in changing what direction you're going. Let's pray. Excuse me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this evening with the kids. I pray that they have been able to hear your words through me, that they are able to take this message and do something good with it in their lives. Maybe it's like a small change, maybe it's a big change, maybe it's completely turn their lives around. I don't know. I do know that if any of them are like me, they have gotten to a point in their lives where these decisions